Welcome back. Yep, Boston and Toronto again. The interesting thing is they haven't met over the last 4 seasons, but it does feel like this is just back to what we know. We know this series will go 7 games, right? Generally seems to be the case. Now, if Toronto's going to beat Boston, I think they need to win it in 6, win it at home. If it goes to a game 7 in Boston, things get a little more dicey. The reality is, though, the team that they faced had Bergeron, and it had a lot of elements that this Boston team doesn't have. And one question mark I have is, so who's going to be the starter? Like, there's talk about them using both goalies in Boston, but who's going to be the starter in Toronto, and how long of a leash will that starter have? Like, it'll be Samsonov, but if he struggles in game 1, does Wall go right in? So there are a lot of question marks around this series. Now, Boston won all 4 matchups between these teams during the regular season, which means nada come playoff time. It doesn't. 3-2 shootout win on November 2nd, so we don't have shootouts in the playoffs. December 2nd, a 4-3 overtime win. Well, we don't have 3-on-3 overtime in the playoffs either. And then March 4th, a 4-1 win. March 7th, a 4-1 win. So Boston's won the most recent 2 meetings. Toronto has to learn from those meetings and adjust. And then for Boston, they have to adjust back. And so it'll be an interesting series. Boston finishes the season 47-20-15. Toronto 46-26-10. There's not really that much difference between these two teams in terms of their overall standing, but I understand that right now people are favoring the Bruins, and I think part of it is Toronto's reputation. Toronto needs to shake that reputation. Now is as good a year as any. Now, if they're going to stop the Bruins, it's going to have to be Pastrnak they stop first. Pastrnak finishes the season with 82 games, 47 goals, 63 assists, 110 points. Since the All-Star break, 33 games, 14 goals, 24 assists, 38 points. The Bruins haven't been playing their best hockey since the All-Star break. Marchand, 82 games, 29 goals, 38 assists, 67 points. Since the All-Star break, 33 games, a low 5 goals, 15 assists, I should say, and 20 points. So Marchand slowed down a little bit this year. We'll see what happens next year. But, of course, in the playoffs, what we're worried about right now, they need playoff Marchand. Charlie Coyle, 82 games, 25 goals, 35 assists, 60 points. Since the All-Star break, 33 games, 7 goals, 11 assists, 18 points. Then you've got Zacha. Zacha had a really good year, 78 games, 21 goals, 38 assists, 59 points. And Coyle and Zacha are going to be a point to keep an eye on because they're trying to fill the roles that Bergeron and Krejci had before that, and that's not easy. But Zacha, since the All-Star break, 33 games, 11 goals, 18 assists, 29 points. McAvoy, 74 games, 12 goals, 35 assists, 47 points. Since the All-Star break, 33 games, 5 goals, 9 assists, 14 points. And then the goaltending. So Swayman has a record of 25-10-8, 916 save percentage. At points this year, it looked like he might be one of the favorites for the Vezina. Tailed off, though. After the All-Star break, 9-7-1 with a 903 save percentage. So, yeah, Hellebuck's going to win the Vezina. We're all going to act surprised when it happens. Ullmark, 22-10-7 overall, 915 save percentage. Since the All-Star break, 7-4-5 with a 917 save percentage. So, for Boston, their numbers have definitely been off since the All-Star. Now, have they been off for Toronto? Not really, and yet there are still some areas of concern. I don't think either of these teams are going into the playoffs necessarily playing their best hockey, which should make for a fascinating series. I think it makes it more unpredictable. Matthews, 81 games, 69 goals, 38 assists, 107 points. Since the All-Star break, 35 games, 29 goals, 20 assists, 49 points. Nylander slowed down a bit after the All-Star break. Ends up with 82 games, 40 goals, 58 assists, 98 points. Was still above a point per game, though, after the All-Star break. 35 games, 17 goals, 20 assists, 37 points. Mitch Marner, 69 games played, 26 goals, 59 assists, 85 points. Since All-Star break, 22 games, 6 goals, 26 assists, 32 points. Then you got John Tavares, who's actually got better since the All-Star break. Overall, his numbers, 80 games, 29 goals, 36 assists, 65 points. But he's been playing really well lately. 33 games, 16 goals, 14 assists, 30 points. Morgan Riley hasn't had a goal since the All-Star break. Ended up with 7 overall to go with 51 assists for 58 points in 72 games. Since the All-Star break, 25 games. But even though he doesn't have a goal, 18 assists, you'll take that. Samsonov, again, we'll see how long a leash he has. He ends up with a 23-7-8 record, 890 save percentage. Since the All-Star break, 15-4-2 with an 899 save percentage. Wall, 12-11-1, 907 save percentage overall, but since the All-Star break, 4-6 with an .890 save percentage. So there are question marks on both sides. Players that are looking to forget what's happened since the All-Star break and just go out there, play their game, and do their best. So we'll look at the numbers head-to-head between the two teams, the tail of the tape, as it were. Goals for favors Toronto, 298 goals scored, 263 for Boston. Goals against favors Boston, 221 goals against, as opposed to the 261 against for Toronto. None of that's really a surprise. Boston, not a team that overwhelmed the opposition with a lot of offense during the year. They would prefer a lower scoring game, although we will come back to that. Power plays, Toronto's favored there, 24%, whereas Boston's at 22.2%, and it's been anemic lately. They need to fix that. Penalty kill favors Boston, 82.5%, whereas Toronto's at 76.9%. But again, while Toronto's penalty kill hasn't been great, neither is Boston's power play. Hits, these teams know how to hit. Both of these teams hit a lot. 2,259 hits for Boston, 2,227 hits for Toronto. The whole soft idea that they're not. They're just, Toronto's not. Block shots, well, Toronto's favored there. 1,352 block shots. Boston, 1,299. Now, leading first is important for both of these teams. Boston, if they score first, 35, 5, and 9. If they allow the first goal, they're 12, 15, and 6. So first goal is really important. It's not as important to Toronto when they score first, 31, 11, and 6. When they allow the first goal, 15, 15, and 4. So if Toronto scores first, Boston might be up against it. Again, makes some sense. They don't generate as much offense as Toronto, right? Your more explosive teams are going to be more capable of those comeback victories. Now, if it's a one-goal game, it favors Toronto. 543 points percentage, Boston 444. I did a bit of a double take when I saw that. If it's a two-goal game, that dramatically favors Boston at a 692 points percentage. Toronto, not a fan of a two-goal game, 400 points percentage. If it's three or more goals, 667 points percentage for Boston, 656 points percentage for Toronto. So much like the Florida series I just previewed, these teams seem to like it when they're lopsided scores. I have no idea why it works that way for Boston when they generally play a low tempo. I guess low tempo is the wrong way to look at it. Low event hockey. Low event hockey seems to be Boston's cup of tea, but the overall numbers tell you they want to make sure they're winning 3-0, 4-1, 5-1. The one-goal games they're not as good at as Toronto. 64% of the channel at the time I'm recording this has picked the Boston Bruins to win it. And again, I'm not surprised. I would have been very surprised to see Toronto with the lead in that because Boston's reputation in the playoffs is better than Toronto's, but recent history has not been on Boston's side. 2020, Boston loses in the second round against Tampa Bay, 4-1. 2021, they lose in the second round against the Islanders, 4-2. They haven't got out of the first round since. 2022, they lost in the first round against Carolina in 7. 2023, they lost against Florida in 7. That's the reason I think this series is going to go 7. On the Toronto side of things, they lost the qualifying round 3-2 against Columbus in 2020. In 2021, they lost round 1 against Montreal in 7. 2022, they lost in the first round against Tampa Bay in 7. 2023, in the second round, they lost against Florida in 5. 4-1. So it is interesting how these teams have both had the recent Game 7 struggles. Morgan Geekie's had quite the year for Boston. 76 games, 17 goals, 22 assists, 39 points. Part of the reason that Seattle fell back is I think they made poor personnel decisions, and letting Geekie go, I think, was one of those poor decisions. Lindholm, not a fantastic season offensively, but he's going to be counted on to play a lot of important minutes in the playoffs. 73 games, 3 goals, 23 assists, 26 points. And Trent Frederick had himself a year, 82 games, 18 goals, 22 assists, 40 points. If you need somebody to drop the gloves, you need some sandpaper, he can provide that. Then we get over to the Toronto side, and Max Domi, not the goals you might have wanted with only 9, but in 80 games, he also had 38 assists for 47 points. Tyler Bertuzzi, 80 games, 21 goals, 22 assists, 43 points. Very hot and cold. And Bertuzzi, of course, playing against the team he played with in the playoffs last year. We'll see if the familiarity means they're all friendly to each other. I'm thinking no. And then Robertson. Nick Robertson, to me, is one of those real wild cards in this. If he can score a couple goals against Boston, he could be part of how Toronto beats Boston. 56 games, 14 goals, 13 assists, 27 points. I'm wearing Boston because, honestly, Boston, team I cheer for and everything, and I can't wear Toronto. I have worn Toronto for a Boston-Toronto preview before. I think this series is going to be very, very close. Yes, I think Toronto can win it. It would go a long way towards dispelling this idea that they can't play in said playoffs. But they do usually get to a seventh game or a deciding game. They have to overcome whatever physical or mental issue that's causing them not to be able to get over the hump. Maybe this is the year. So we'll see. And I don't mean any sarcasm with that at all. And again, though I am obviously rooting for Boston in this, all the best to both teams, and I hope it's a really fun series. Let me know your pick in the comment section below, or how you feel this series is going to play out. I think one of the fascinating storylines is going to be the goaltending. Boston, every indication they're going to go with a rotation in the playoffs. Easier said than done if you have a shutout in the first game. And then on the Toronto side, can Toronto find enough goaltending? And can the defense cover for some of that goaltending as well and get them over the hump in the playoffs? Fascinating time. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.